welcome to our version of a Democracy Cafe to discuss how young people could trust politics. I'm very pleased to be joined by Alexia to the right of me, and we've also got Ines, and we're also joined virtually today by Shabnam, Abba, and also Diana, discussing how we can rebuild politics to make sure that it works for young people, but also make sure that we actually listen to young people's voices about how they want to build trust and what they want to see from their decision makers and politicians. I've got some stark statistics with me today, which show that 67% of young people who live in the UK do not trust either political institutions or the politicians. 15% have no opinion about it, and only a very small percentage of young people in the UK trust politics. So, Alexia, if I may start with you, what do you think are the biggest obstacles that stop young people from engaging in politics?
Young people have lost trust in institutions and specifically in democracy. Now, that cannot be easily justified, but first of all, we can say that politics are projected to young people as a means of corruption. They do not believe in the transparency and the almost honesty that politics should at least represent. Also, they believe politicians do not represent them. They do not see youth participating in politics, or at least in formal politics. So they do feel like politics is not a matter that has to do with them.
Shabnam, if I can come to you, what would you say is the one big thing that stops young people from trusting politicians, or what, from your experience, have you seen or have you heard from other young people?
Thank you. I think it's the lack of hopelessness. So even if young people are able to attend places where they are supposedly being heard and listened to, there's no decisive action that is being taken. So to give an example, a few months ago, I attended an employment discussion hosted by the House of Lords, which I represented My Life, My Say at. And it was very clear that many of the young leaders there and young students had shared similar issues. After the event, there was no follow-up, so there was no action plan that they had promised to take. So even though sometimes we have these opportunities to attend these events and these programs to share our ideas and our concerns, we feel hopeless that we're not being heard and we're not taken serious enough.
Diana, if I can come to you, what are some of the things that we can do to kind of enhance our democracy, to give young people more of a voice?
When something needs to be done, if this is like a government policy or government strategy, it's asking these young people, what do you think's needed and what do you think you would like to see? And from doing so, you'll be able to get young people's voices and actually create really successful campaigns that young people have been involved in. Often you find that sometimes these solutions and policies are made, but they don't actually consider young people's opinions. So by really doing so, you'll be able to get a different range of perspectives and also be able to make something that's accessible and useful for a lot of young people.
Abba, if I can come back to you, what are some of the more practical things that you think we can do to build that trust?
A lot of young people are talking about, for example, climate change or even the Black Lives Matter movement, equality. And I think it's really great to give all these young people forums or stuff to kind of talk about. But when we don't put it into actual tangible change, it's really difficult to do so. There should be young people that are actively in the decision making as well, because it's something that's affecting us, holding government accountable. A lot of time there are promises that they made or put through their manifesto which broke. We saw that especially during the pandemic. As long as the government is holding accountable, but also just actually listening to young people and talking to them about what do we actually want to change, or what do we actually want to implement, I think is a really a good way to kind of bridge that gap.
I think that it's really important to have more transparency, and I know that everyone keeps saying that, but for it to actually happen, it's really hard. We do live in a time when there is more transparency because of technology, social media, and more things come to light. I think that a key part to rebuild this trust is the education system, again, because it does have the power to reach people and it has accessibility. So if we change the education system to match the pace of the world and to include more politics, to involve teenagers, start with decisions that concern your school, then you move on to community and even country, and use the education system as a tool to reach more people and involve them. Then that will rebuild some trust in the government.
Where do you go to, if you want to check up on the news?
First of all, I prefer learning news and learning current issues through teens, so that the only way that I can really do that is through social media. However, I need to cross-check everything that I read, so I do use more traditional news sources such as newspapers to really inform myself on what I really care about. Although, as I said before, I prefer learning about current issues through the eyes of a teenager, because that's what I can relate to.
What is it that you look to see in your leader? What qualities would you like to see?
Sure. I think something that's definitely needed is a leader who really takes into account what young people need. One way this can be done is to ensure that we as young people get to hold these leaders accountable. So we get to challenge them, we get to ask them different questions, and they get to really sit down with us and ask, okay, this is what you want to see, what are the actions you want me to do, and how will I be able to implement this?
I'm going to put you all on the spot. We've got 2 minutes left. If you were the Prime Minister for a day, what's the one thing that you would do?
Youth engagement, and also climate change.
Lowering the voting age, I would do that if I were the Prime Minister for a day.
I would make mental health services more accessible, so you do not have to wait lots of months to actually be seen.
I would obviously fight discrimination, because we see it play out in education, in housing, and in other parts of society.
I would lower and expand the citizen threshold so more people would be heard.